"You're not on the list," the security guy said, not even looking up from his clipboard. I blinked. "I've been at every DCAA renewal meeting since 2012. He shrugged like I'd asked him to solve world hunger. "Austin's orders." That's when I knew something was off. Not just corporate stupid, not just nepotism stupid. This was weaponized ignorance, laced with just enough entitlement to make it dangerous. I stood outside that glass-walled conference room, watching my replacement, Chad, wearing loafers with no socks, trying to balance a box of muffins and a government binder like he was carrying his mom's groceries and her taxes at the same damn time. 12 years I gave to Tech. Started as a junior compliance analyst back when our biggest contract was just a long-shot bid no one thought we'd win. I earned every clearance, sat through every federal audit, wrote the damn renewal packet from scratch more than once. I'd been the name on that contract through 11 consecutive renewals. And now I was at the front desk, with a blazer I paid for out of pocket and a name tag that still smelled like the plastic sleeve it came in. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't shocked. This wasn't an ambush. It was a slow bleed. Austin, the founder's kid, rolled in fresh off an MBA like that meant something to federal compliance. The man thought cage codes were locker combinations. First thing he did as CEO, replaced our entire contracts team with his golf buddies and podcast bros. Called it streamlining. Told me, dead serious, that my certifications were probably overkill for the modern era. I smiled. That kind of smile women in tech and government-adjacent roles perfect after enough years. Tight, practiced, polite enough to get you to your car without screaming. Then I packed up my office and walked myself down to reception. Hey, before we go further, quick ask. If you're listening and you're one of the 97% who haven't subscribed yet, it makes a huge difference. Just hit that subscribe button, give it a like if you're into stories like this. Trust me, the team's been working their asses off to bring these to life. All right, back to it. They gave me a little badge that read Operations Support, like that erased the fact that I still had top-level clearance access tied directly to my name. And not just in the Merotech system, I mean in the DCAA system, sam.gov FAPIS DFARS. My name wasn't just on a spreadsheet, it was burned into the bones of our $340 million contract like a watermark. I sat at that front desk every day with my clearance intact and my inbox eerily silent. Because Chad, sweet summer child that he was, had no idea what the hell he was supposed to be monitoring. The man thought DFARS was a weight loss supplement. He was too busy arranging emoji-coded Slack channels and scheduling contract vibes brainstorming sessions to notice that every deadline was slipping. Every government liaison was getting colder, and every compliance query was bouncing into the void. I didn't interfere. That's the key to watching a slow train wreck. You don't try to stop it. You just sip your coffee and make sure you're not on the tracks when it hits. 6 weeks to renewal and not a single checkpoint met. I knew because the government still CC'd me on some of the auto dispatches. They hadn't updated their contact logs. No one had filed a change of officer notification, which meant legally I was still listed as the primary contract officer. That part? That wasn't some HR title. That was a certification, a role with conditions. Clause 9.2.1. No contract renewal can be processed without the signature of an active, certified primary contract officer. That's not company policy. That's federal policy. I watched the muffins roll into the boardroom on a tray while Chad gave a little wave through the glass like I was his Uber driver. My phone rang. Merotech front desk. This is Jennifer, I said. It was one of the subcontractors. Panicked. Apparently they hadn't received the final logistics waiver for the inventory audits and needed approval before they could release the Q4 shipment logs. I paused. I'll forward you the contact for our new contract lead, I said. Sweet as sugar, they sighed. Thanks, Jennifer. For what it's worth, we miss you. I smiled. Not as much as they're going to. The meeting was in 2 days. I'd already reviewed the internal calendar. My name was still on it in small print under Compliance Chain Primary CO. I left it there. Like a match, balanced just so above a puddle of gasoline. The email came at 6:42 a.m. Subject line, Leadership Transition, Exciting Times Ahead. I opened it before I'd even sipped my coffee. I knew it was coming, but damn if the wording didn't hit like a poorly thrown stapler. Effective immediately, our beloved founder, Richard Merrow, would be stepping down and passing the torch to his son, Austin. There was a photo attached. Austin in a Patagonia vest with his thumbs hooked in his belt loops like a cowboy of mediocrity. His teeth were too white, his smile too wide. It reeked of LinkedIn hustle culture and a private equity trust fund. There was a town hall that morning. I sat in the third row, took notes like I always did. Austin strolled out like he was hosting an after-party at Coachella. He thanked his dad, cracked a joke about finally upgrading the company's Spotify playlists, and then launched into a slideshow about modernizing the org chart. That was my first red flag. Not the org chart. Hell, those change every fiscal year. No, it was the way he said legacy systems, like he was talking about a dying uncle no one liked. 5 minutes later, he introduced Chad. "This is Chad," he beamed. "He's going to lead up our contract ops division. Super sharp guy. We played lacrosse together at Northwestern." Chad waved. His polo shirt had visible deodorant streaks and his phone was clipped to his belt like he thought he was auditioning for a regional Best Buy ad. Someone, probably the new HR manager with the Pinterest board teeth, clapped. The sound echoed awkwardly across the room. Then Austin said it. The line that got branded into the back of my skull. "Jennifer's still around. She's moving into a more guest-facing role at reception. Honestly, with her experience, she's the perfect first impression of Merrow Tech." The room went dead silent. Nobody clapped that time. Not even HR Pinterest. I smiled. That smile again. The one you learn after 10 years of being the only woman in the room who actually reads the contract instead of just nodding through it. After the meeting, I got the formal HR notice. Lateral transition, they called it. No salary adjustment at this time. They even offered to get me a branded fleece jacket for visibility. I packed up my things. It took 4 boxes, 12 years, hundreds of audit trails, 11 successful renewals, printed and archived quarterly compliance summaries, a laminated vendor escalation log that no one else knew existed, and I handed over every single file, except one. On my last trip back to the old office, I unplugged the framed certificate from the wall. Federal Contract Compliance Officer Certification, Level 3, issued to Jennifer E. Klein. Status, active expiration, 2026 0311 ID RRs, FCL 429-774 GOV. No one asked for it. No one even thought to check. They assumed Chad, with his half-finished LinkedIn courses and an Intro to Compliance webinar he didn't stay logged into, would just inherit the role, like it was a hat you passed around at a birthday party. I took the certificate home, filed it in a drawer next to my passport and the spare key to the server room they forgot I still had. I knew what Clause 9.2.1 said. It was burned into my brain. We used to joke about it in the early days, back when Richard still showed up to meetings and the coffee pot didn't taste like burned regret. All renewals must be initiated and confirmed by the certified primary contract officer, listed at time of last award. Certification must be active, no substitutions. There it was. 1 sentence, 1 landmine, and they never saw it. Chad swung by the front desk a few days later, holding a thumb drive in one hand and a protein shake in the other. "Hey, Jen, quick cue," he said, already chewing something. "Do you, remember the login for the GSA access portal? I think it's, expiring or something." I didn't even look up. That would fall under the primary contract officer's purview. "Oh, yeah," he nodded. "Sick. That's me now, right?" "Sure," I said, and buzzed in a courier. He walked away whistling. The problem wasn't just that they underestimated me. The problem was that they thought the system cared about their charisma, about their bagels and their golf stories and their Monday huddles with words like synergy and disruption scribbled on glass walls in dry erase markers. The system didn't care. The system only cared about one thing: who was certified and who wasn't. And I was still the only name on file. The badge they gave me still had my clearance embedded. That was the funny part. Probably an oversight. Or maybe they thought removing the title would magically scrub the system clean. It didn't. When I tapped in every morning, the security log still pinged. Level 3 access granted. I could have walked straight into the compliance vault if I felt like it. Instead, I sat behind the front desk next to a dying spider plant and a jar of off-brand mints that tasted like mentholated guilt. From the lobby, I had a perfect line of sight to everything. Who came in late, who pretended to read contracts during lunch, who spent boardroom time texting shirtless gym selfies to women who definitely didn't ask. Chad, especially. Chad made his rounds every morning like he was running for prom king. Big smile, Bluetooth earpiece, always smelling faintly of Axe and overconfidence. He'd park himself in the glass conference room just off the lobby, flip open his laptop, and start hammering away at whatever PowerPoint someone had ghostwritten for him. Occasionally, he'd pop out and flash me a thumbs up like I was a cocktail waitress and he'd just hit a hole-in-one. "Morning, Jen," he'd say. "Big day today. Got a call with the G-men." That's what he called the DCAA agents, the G-men, like we were in a noir film and he was about to light a lucky strike and ask where the dame went. He missed 2 pre-renewal review deadlines in the first week. I only knew because I was still quietly CC'd on the backup compliance inbox. It was an old routing rule set up before we migrated servers. No one thought to kill it. So every time a government liaison sent a request, it came to me too. Most went unanswered. Some bounced. One had "urgent" in the subject line, flagged red, requesting clarification on a 2021 procurement addendum for medical transport equipment. Chad's reply? Hey, thanks so much. We'll circle back after the weekend. Appreciate ya." I read that one twice. My hand tightened around my thermos so hard I nearly cracked the lid. The next day, he posted a selfie in the war room with 2 junior analysts and a caption, "Compliance vibes only. Jaden team grind, water fed ready." He had no idea what was coming. I checked the internal calendar. The renewal meeting was still there, set for exactly 6 weeks out, just like I'd scheduled it months ago before Austin's coup. Still had the same agenda template, same location, same external attendees, and under internal contact primary CO. There it was. Jennifer E. Klein. They hadn't changed a thing. Which meant one of 2 things was true. Either they didn't know the clause existed, which was bad, or they did know and assumed they could swap in Chad, like subbing in a relief pitcher, which was worse. Clause 9.2.1 wasn't buried. It was bolded, one of the few lines in the contract that used plain English instead of legalese. I helped write it. After the second renewal, when the agency insisted we hard-code named officers into every major contract. It wasn't optional. It wasn't transferable. It was the kind of clause that came with a literal government ID check before signatures. And they missed it. They were too busy high-fiving each other in Slack, launching new merch, and rebranding logistics compliance as CX Flow ownership. Whatever the hell that means. I watched every day from that lobby. I answered phones, smiled at vendors, took lunch at my desk, and every now and then I'd catch a glimpse of the renewal slide deck being updated on the conference room screen. Chad was building it himself, or rather, piecing it together from Google templates and half-remembered acronyms. One day I caught the title slide. Merotech XGov Reimagining Federal Partnership. Underneath, in smaller text, presented by Chad D. Millstone, Contracts Lead. Not a single mention of me, not even in the credits. I got up, walked to the ladies' room, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. 12 years of work. 12 years of nights spent squinting over procurement grids and vendor license files. 12 years of never missing a deadline, of passing every audit, of building the systems they now relied on. And I was the one behind the desk, while Chad was upstairs screwing up a $340 million renewal like it was his first group project and he forgot it was graded. I dried my hands, returned to the lobby, and resumed smiling. Let them forget. Let them believe it was theirs to own. Because they had 6 weeks left. And the clock wasn't ticking for me, it was ticking for them. It was like watching a possum try to play the violin, confident, twitchy, and absolutely convinced it was nailing it. Chad had commandeered the third-floor war room as his mission control for the DCAA renewal package. Whiteboards covered in buzzwords, sticky notes in 6 colors. Half of them said things like, "Get gov codes," or "Ask someone right, past audits maybe?" And every time someone walked in with a question, Chad would swivel in his chair like he was about to pitch a startup. Yeah, we're building out the compliance narrative," he told an intern once, finger gunning like a rejected car salesman. "Big picture. Gotta tell the story, right? Meanwhile, the actual documents, the ones with real stakes, were a mess. He'd printed sealed files and left them on the coffee table next to a crusty mug labeled "Audit This." He handed off a signed NDA to a marketing temp just in case she needed something to do. And when the head of logistics asked where to upload the Q4 expense schedules for federal cost reconciliation, Chad blinked and said, "We're skipping legacy formats this year. Just vibes." Every time he opened his mouth, I had to fight the urge to shove a binder between my teeth and scream into it. The interns called him Sir Chad. Not out of respect, but because that's what he put on his Slack profile. One day, I heard him loudly explain that FAR stood for Federal Allocation Ratio. It doesn't. I stayed quiet. There's a particular flavor of detachment that comes from watching someone destroy something you built, brick by brick, with a smile on their face and mustard on their shirt. He started referring to me as front desk lady. Not in a mean way, just flippant. The way you'd refer to a lamp or a ficus. Like I'd always been part of the furniture. "Hey, front desk lady," he said once, snapping his fingers. "Did we ever get a thing from, the contract givers?" "The federal government?" I asked. "Yeah, them." He winked. "You're on it." He walked away before I could respond, whistling "Don't Stop Believin'." Later that week, someone accidentally printed a draft of the renewal agenda to the lobby printer, probably one of the interns, one of the few actually trying to do their job. I picked it up before anyone noticed. 10 pages, bullet-pointed, formatted like a high school science fair schedule. Misspelled acronyms, color-coded headers, meaningless graphs that looked like he found them on a stock site and slapped compliance trends over them. But there it was. Page 2, line item. Dead center. Primary Contract Officer, Jennifer Klein. It hadn't changed. Not once. Not since I set up the template 6 years ago and saved it to the internal SharePoint with the header, DCAA Renewal Master, our final, really final, this time, type PTX. No one touched it. Probably didn't even know where it lived. That one line sat there, untouched, waiting, and it told me everything I needed to know. They didn't just forget to change it. They didn't even know they needed to. The closer we got to the meeting, the more Chad panicked. He started showing up earlier, hair messier, teeth unbrushed, sweat blooming through his polo by 9:30 a.m. His voice got sharper with the interns. He began snapping at anyone who asked real questions. One poor analyst asked about 2 CFR Part 200 and got a rant about how we don't need to memorize trivia anymore. We've got AI. He bought new mugs that said Chief Contract Slayer. He posted a picture of his war room setup with the caption, "Big prep for the big boys in Big Gov. Let's get this bread. Takum Contract Squad, Fed ready." The DCAA liaison liked the post and then unfollowed him. I watched it all from my seat in the lobby, where I now kept a little sticky note on my monitor. 5 days. Then 4 days. The morning before the meeting, Chad walked by holding a flash drive between 2 fingers like it was a sacred relic. "This baby's got the goods," he told me. "Presentation, numbers, breakdowns. All systems go." I nodded. "All systems go." He grinned. "Bet the agents are gonna love the new structure." "Hope so." As he walked away, I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out the printed agenda again. Still there, still my name, still bolded. Primary CO, let them come. Let the room fill, let the binders stack. Because unless Chad planned on legally becoming me overnight, that contract was dead on arrival, and I'd be right there to watch it flatline. The file was still bookmarked on my personal cloud. Merotech's official renewal copy of the master federal contract, labeled exactly the way I left it. MT FedCon Primary 2020 Final Word Locked.pdf. I opened it from my phone during my lunch break, sitting in the empty cafe corner of the lobby next to the vending machine that only ate 20s. I didn't need to look, really. I already knew what I'd find. But there's something about seeing it in black and white that quiets the last whisper of doubt. Like reading a death certificate and realizing, yes, this body is legally, officially dead. There it was. Page 82, Section 9.2.1. Primary Officer Authorization. Contract renewal and extension shall not proceed without written certification and signature of the individual listed in Appendix A, Section 3. holding current and active clearance as primary contract officer at the time of last award. No proxy or reassignment is permitted without formal amendment and agency countersignature. I scrolled down. Appendix A, Section 3, Primary Contract Officer, Jennifer Elaine Klein, Certification Active, FCL 429 7-4 GOV Clearance Level. 3 Expiration Date, No 3/11/2026. I stared at that line for a long time. My name, my clearance ID, my signature at the bottom of that page, embossed and time-stamped, witnessed by the DCAA liaison, registered in the SAM system, uploaded into the federal portal where it still sat, ticking like a silent alarm. No proxy, no reassignment, no Chad, no Austin, no workaround, just me. I closed the file, locked my phone, folded my hands on the laminate cafe table and watched the steam rise off my coffee like it had something to say. They hadn't amended anything. They hadn't even looked. They thought it was all vibes and muffins and LinkedIn optimization strategies. Thought they could just slap a new name on a PDF, fire off a few marketing graphics, and the government would shrug and say, "Sure, good enough." But that contract was a living, breathing organism, one that I helped build cell by cell, clause by clause. You didn't just swap out its spine and expect it to walk. The fuse wasn't about to be lit. It had already been burning. Austin's smirk, Chad's PowerPoints, the interns running around with binders full of misfiled procurement memos. It was all just noise now. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was that little line buried near the end of a federal document no one had touched in 3 years. My name wasn't a formality. It was the key in the ignition. And without it, the whole machine just sat there and died. I picked up my tray, dumped my lunch into the trash untouched, and walked back to the front desk. The automatic doors whooshed open as 2 guys from the shipping vendor walked in, asking for Chad. I smiled and buzzed them up. Then I sat back down, adjusted the phone cord, smoothed the crease in my skirt, and went back to watching the building pretend it wasn't already on fire. Because now I didn't have to do a thing. They showed up right on time. 2 men and 1 woman in identical charcoal suits. DCAA badges clipped neat and visible, expressions carved out of bureaucratic stone. They moved like people used to silence. Precise, unbothered, immune to charm. You could feel the temperature in the lobby drop 5 degrees the second they stepped in. I stood, not out of respect, out of habit. You learn, over time, that people who wield quiet authority can spot the difference between fear and deference. I gave them the nod. The lead agent, Connors, I think, nodded back. No words exchanged. Just enough acknowledgement to register. Yes, I'm still here. Then they disappeared into the elevator with a junior staffer who looked like she might actually vomit before hitting the 4th floor. I sat back down, picked up the phone before it even rang, and said, "Merotech, this is Jennifer." Upstairs, I could see it unfold through the glass partition and open conference layout, the new transparent management design Austin implemented after reading half a book by a Scandinavian workplace guru. All it really did was turn disasters into stage plays. Austin greeted the agents at the head of the long table like a man hosting his 3rd wedding. Too much smiling, too much hand movement. He had his sleeves rolled up like he wanted to show off 4 arms that had never lifted anything heavier than his own ego. Chad? Chad brought muffins. He presented them like sacrificial offerings. "Figured y'all needed some carbs to crush this session," he joked, finger-gunning the agent in the middle. She didn't even blink, just stared at the tray like it had insulted her ancestors. Then the lights dimmed. Chad grabbed the clicker. The projector hummed to life. From my seat at the front desk, I watched him inhale like he was about to deliver the Gettysburg Address. What came out instead was a mumbling avalanche of misplaced buzzwords and mismatched acronyms. "Welcome to our renewal journey," he began. "I like to call this contracts reimagined." One of the agents cocked her head slightly. Connors started flipping through his folder, slow and methodical. Chad powered through. "We've simplified a lot of our processes. Modernize things, if you will. Lean compliance, lean operations, synergistic resource management. And we've pivoted our contract framework into a CX forward lifecycle." No one said a word. He clicked to the next slide where an animated dot GIF of a rocket ship launched upward as words like innovation and integrity floated past. I didn't even pretend to work. I just sat there, phone silent, sipping my coffee, watching the car crash unfold in real time. The intern stood at the back of the room like deer in a hailstorm. HR Pinterest looked like she was practicing how to faint without wrinkling her blouse. And Austin, dear, sweet Austin, sat back in his chair, arms crossed, grinning like a man who truly believed the only thing separating him from a federal renewal was positive energy and a 3-slide deck. Connors stopped flipping his pages. He was staring now. I saw him gesture toward a section in the binder, whispered something to his colleague. She leaned in, pointed. Chad noticed. Oh, you're probably looking at Appendix B. That's where we put all the cool new stuff. Transparency protocol, vendor rotation, audit deflection procedures. Deflection? The female agent said flatly. Chad froze. You know, like redirecting resources during a bottleneck, not like. Connors held up a hand. Mr. Millstone, he said quietly, can you confirm who currently holds active certification as the primary contract officer of record? Chad blinked. That'd be me. I've got the team, and Austin signed off, and we did a LinkedIn course, and the room held its breath. Connors opened his folder, slowly, like it weighed 10 pounds. He flipped one final page, tapped a line with a capped pen, said nothing. Austin leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Is there a problem? The agent didn't answer. I saw it happen. The precise moment Austin's jaw twitched, his smugness faltered, and he began to realize something was off. Chad was sweating now. Bad. One of the interns opened a water bottle and handed it to him like he was prepping for a meltdown. Then Connors turned the folder around, pointed again, and said one line. Who is Jennifer Klein? My phone rang. I picked it up calmly, eyes never leaving the glass. Merotech, this is Jennifer, I said. How can I direct your call? The folder snapped shut like a trap. Connors didn't raise his voice, didn't clear his throat. He just pressed his palm on the cover and sat back, spine straight as rebar. Then he said it. Primary Contract Officer, Jennifer Klein. No reaction at first, just silence, thick and sour. Like everyone in that room felt the pressure drop but couldn't quite name why the oxygen left. Then Chad laughed. Too fast, too loud. Oh, yeah, she's with us still, front desk now, but I've got it all handled. She trained me, basically. We're totally synced up. Connors didn't even blink. Is she present? Austin leaned forward like he was about to launch into some corporate spin, but stopped short. Because Connors had locked eyes with him, and the look wasn't friendly. It was clinical, the kind of stare that takes measurements for a coffin. Behind the glass, I didn't move, didn't speak. I just raised my hand. A slow, steady motion, no smile, no wave. Just fingers to shoulder height, like a student waiting to be called on in a class she wrote the curriculum for. Every head in that room turned. Austin's mouth opened, then closed again. His hand hovered over the laptop like he was searching for a reset button. Chad looked like someone had just read his browser history aloud. Yeah, Chad stammered. I mean, she's here, obviously, but she's not, active in a functional capacity anymore. We transitioned to a new framework, more agile, decentralized authority. Connors raised one eyebrow. Just one. Her certification? Chad blinked. Huh? Her certification, Connors repeated crisp. Federal Level 3. Is it still active? I could see the panic rising. The spreadsheet panic. The oh God, I thought someone else handled that panic. Austin tried to salvage it. We assume the transition. The contract doesn't assume, Connors said, voice like steel cut with sand. Clause 9.2.1 specifies, renewal must be signed and certified by the primary contract officer of record. Named in Appendix A certification must be active. No reassignment without countersignature by agency and formal amendment. There is no such amendment on file. No one moved. No one breathed. The only sound was the faint hum of the projector and the slow, wet sound of Chad's career hemorrhaging into his sockless shoes. I can get her, Austin finally blurted. We can bring her in if that's what's needed. Connors leaned back. Is that what's needed? He asked his colleagues. The woman flipped through a tablet. Current contract certification logs confirm. Jennifer Klein is the sole active officer on file. All digital credentials traced to her login and token signature. No delegation logged, no override authorized. Austin ran a hand through his hair like it might shake loose an escape clause. She works at the front desk now, he offered, like it was a defense. So? The female agent said. She's the officer of record. Would you like to continue this meeting with her present? Connors asked. Chad opened his mouth, then closed it, then looked at Austin like a dog waiting to be told where to pee. Austin nodded, pale. Yes, please. I stood up slowly, straightened my blazer, stepped around the desk with the kind of calm you only earn after 12 years of being underestimated by men who think charm is a substitute for compliance. I walked past the glass wall, through the open door, and into a room full of people who finally understood the gravity of that one line. No badge could replace it, no muffins could distract from it, and no startup lingo could talk over the sound of a fuse reaching its end. I took the seat at the head of the table, the one they used to save for me, and I waited. The silence after Connor's words wasn't just awkward, it was terminal, like the moment before a hard drive dies or the last breath of a meeting no one wants to resuscitate. Without her active certification, he repeated, tone unflinching, this contract expires at midnight. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The words landed like a gavel. Austin's mouth moved, but nothing came out. Chad looked around, waiting for someone else to speak, like a kid who just dropped a match and wants his mom to put out the fire. An intern in the back quietly stepped out of the room, probably to text her resume to literally anyone. I don't understand, Austin finally stammered. We assumed operational continuity. We assumed the structure would allow for... You assumed wrong, Connors said flatly. He closed his folder, slow and deliberate. Your internal decisions don't modify federal conditions. You demoted the one individual qualified to authorize your renewal and failed to submit an amendment or request certification transfer. As of this moment, you have less than 12 hours until your contract terminates automatically. It hit then. You could see it, like a bruise blooming across Austin's face in real time. Chad stood up too quickly and knocked over his chair. We can fix this. She's here. She can sign, right? Connors leaned back in his seat, almost amused. She hasn't agreed to join this meeting yet. All eyes turned to me. I didn't blink. Jennifer, Austin said, voice cracking, we'd be honored, truly, if you'd rejoin the table. Not please, not I'm sorry, just we'd be honored. Like I was still auditioning for the job I already held in my sleep. I glanced at the DCAA agents, then at the empty coffee cup in front of Chad, still sticky with muffin crumbs and desperation. I took my time, adjusted my sleeve. Then, calmly, I walked to the table and sat down, not where they gestured, where I used to sit, at the head, the seat of record. Austin sat, hands twitching like he wanted to scream but knew better. Chad. Well, Chad just hovered like a ghost in a startup hoodie, completely unsure if he should still be in the room or hiding under the nearest desk. Let's talk, I said, folding my hands on the table. You've got a little under 12 hours. What do you need? Austin asked, voice hollow. I tilted my head, pretending to think. What I needed was support, respect. A team that didn't throw out the oxygen tank because someone thought they could breathe better vibes. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. What I needed, I said, voice calm and even, wasn't a fleece jacket or a new title. It was leadership that understood federal contracts aren't marketing sprints. They're precision systems. You don't swap a jet pilot mid-flight because your cousin likes planes. Connors gave the faintest nod. I made a mistake. Austin muttered, eyes low. You made 10, I corrected, but the worst one was assuming I'd save you. I stood. If you'll excuse me, I have calls to answer. Jennifer, he said, panic flaring again. Please, can we work something out? Sure, I said. You've got until midnight. Then I walked out, calm and unhurried, leaving them in that room, surrounded by binders they didn't understand and a clock they couldn't stop. This wasn't anger. This was gravity, and they were already falling. I returned at 4:45 p.m., right before the second round of calls started flying to legal, then procurement, then straight into the red-hot void that is Merotech's executive Slack. The panic was biblical. At some point, someone pulled a paralegal out of PTO to try drafting a last-minute contract amendment, only to find out it would take a minimum of 72 hours, 2 federal approvals, and a miracle. But I wasn't there for the scrambling. I was there to end it. The entire executive floor had gone deathly quiet by then. Austin was slumped in the conference room, face in his hands like he was listening for a pulse that wasn't coming. Chad had vanished, last spotted somewhere in the stairwell, mumbling about rebranding and pivot opportunities. HR Pinterest had left early for a family emergency, which everyone knew meant she was trying to preemptively update her resume. I walked into the boardroom without knocking. Connors looked up first, then nodded once. Austin stood like he was still in control of something. "Jennifer, if we could just—" I didn't let him finish. I slid a crisp envelope onto the table, centered it with 2 fingers, and said, "Effective immediately." He opened it like it might explode. Inside, my resignation letter, signed, dated, and already filed with HR, and attached, paper-clipped with corporate finality, was the DCAA form FCL39FAR, Voluntary Certification Termination. I'd filed it that morning. My clearance expired at exactly 11:59 p.m. They didn't need a denial from the agency. They didn't need a revocation clause. Without my certification, there was nothing to extend, nothing to transfer, nothing to salvage. At 12:01 a.m., the contract expired, all $340 million of it. Connors closed his folder and stood. "Thank you, Ms. Klein. We'll consider this matter concluded." The agents left without another word. Austin sat back down, like gravity had returned and taken his spine with it. "I already accepted another position," I said. "Director of Federal Programs at Stratos Edge. I start Monday." They asked about the lapse in service. I told them it was a misunderstanding. He stared at me, broken, small, trying to find an escape hatch that didn't exist. "Jennifer," he said, "please, there has to be something." I tilted my head. "You demoted me," I said softly. "Told everyone my credentials didn't matter. You handed my role to a guy who thought sam.gov was a dating site." He swallowed hard. Didn't speak. I turned to leave. Then paused, one hand on the door frame, and looked back. "You bumped me down to the lobby," I said. Turns out the lobby had a better view.